Hey, Naked Lunch listeners. Today, Phil and I are thrilled to be sitting with the great writer and director, Larry Charles, author of this great book, Comedy Samurai, 40 Years of Blood, Guts, and Laughter. We talk about directing Borat, about writing for Seinfeld. We talk about working with on Curb Your Enthusiasm, working with Bob Dylan, working with Larry David, and so much more. And in addition to sitting with Larry Charles, we also stand with Stephen Colbert. Okay, here's Larry Charles. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Let's spill the beans, chew the fat, food for thought, jokes on tap. Talking with our mouths full, having fun. A piece of cake and humble pie, serving up a slice of life. Leave the dressing on the side, it's Naked Lunch. Clothing optional.
This reunion of three, we'll find your relationship with Phil, and I was lucky enough to have some history with you as well.
Yes.
But the occasion is your book, Comedy Samurai.
Look at it.
Amazing book, 40 Years of Blood, Guts, and Laughter, a memoir by Larry Charles, which is
Great.
one of the, I have almost never moved through a book so quickly because I was so fascinated.
Thank you so much.
Did you do an audio?
I did an audio.
Oh, I'm going to get that too.
I had to
wanna
audition.
hear you.
I had to audition.
Who are you up against?
Yes. Nobody. I mean, but they wanted to make sure that I could do it. So I had to read a couple of pages and I got the job.
Well, I would like to give you the job of reading a bit of a page if you will take the assignment.
Happily. Do
This
we have
is-
any water by any
Yes,
chance?
we will get you. I will get you
That'd
water.
be great.
Nice. You let him read.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is, I was wondering in the middle, maybe, but even during, in the middle of this page.
This is the first time we've done a reading.
Yes.
Huh. I feel very, very privileged. Starting from...
Imagine you're in a little sound closet.
Yeah, that wish I was.
I like
One
starting,
example.
but even.
But even, okay. And how far you want me to go?
Well, I don't think there's a better sentence to end on in history.
The yanking the face, or suffocating?
Yes.
Suffocating. Okay. It's a pretty long excerpt.
Go ahead.
But even during the stage scenes, I would go overboard sometimes. The movie, the comedy, had to be intense and hard, and I was determined to make the stage scenes as real and in your face as the so-called unstaged ones.
We're talking about Borat.
Borat.
Great.
One example was during the climax of the hotel room portion of the naked fight. We had worked out the choreography for the corpulent Azamat to wind up sitting on Borat's face and trying to smother him. There was a lot of nakedness in that room and many discussions of what body part would go where and how that was to be accomplished. For instance, ball placement had to be accounted for. Sasha was understandably concerned about hygiene, specifically the hygiene of Azamat's ass.
Oh my God.
So there were abundant wet wipes on the scene.
Oh my God.
Sasha also realized that a wipe simply wouldn't be sufficient. We came up with a way to place a surgical mask over Sasha's face and then lower Azamat onto him so Sasha's facial orifices would be protected. Further, we worked out a signal for when Sasha could no longer breathe. He would essentially tap out. If he tapped 3 times, we were to yank Azamat off his face immediately. But I was looking to capture that magic, that X factor, that lightning in a bottle, and once the mask was on and Azamat was lowered onto him, the cameras and I were right on top of them, capturing the action like a live sporting event. We were all on the bed, bouncing up and down, and I was screaming to keep going, keep going. Somewhere during this, I saw Sasha tap out. But I knew he wouldn't want to do it again, and I would have to agree. But that meant I had to be sure we had enough footage. I knew this would be an important one-of-a-kind moment, so I ignored the tap out. Sasha began to tap more furiously. He was suffocating.
Oh my.
That's the best thing I ever heard in my life.
That's only
Maybe-
page 163, folks.
Yes. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Larry Charles
Thank you.
directed one of the funniest movies ever made, Borat. And he's talking about maybe the funniest scene in one of the funniest movies ever made. Maybe I saw the movie with my father, who only liked old Jack Benny movies, like To Be or Not to Be. That's his favorite movie. But I'm taking him now to see Borat, and right away he's laughing at the Eastern European Jewishness of Borat. And when it got
you probably
to that,
recognized the Hebrew.
Absolutely.
We used
the
Hebrew.
Yiddish and great. Meanwhile, Borat's a totally anti-Semitic character.
Yeah,
It's
of
hilarious. It's such a great comic invention. I have to talk to you a lot about this. But my father, it was a joy in my life to see him laugh that hard at that scene, which should, in most cases, send an old man screaming from the theater,
Yes.
this is too much, this is vulgar, this is it. But it was so vulgar that it transcends vulgarity.
It did.
You didn't.
That's the alternate title for Larry's book, Transcending Vulgarity.
Transcending vulgarity.
Yes.
That you never really, yes, you saw his butt, but it wasn't graphic in the way that lots of things are graphic. It was still somehow innocent
Yes.
in its playfulness and outrageous. It's truly a work of genius, that bit. And then that it extends out into running down the hall and into the ballroom and all
into
this.
the elevator. There happened to be people in the elevator when we ran in. Well, my mother was very proud, and she was like, you have a movie coming out.
Yeah.
I'm going to take, she was living in Boynton Beach.
Yes.
And I'm going to take all the girls from the Mahjong.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to take them, we're going to be the first ones online. And I'm saying,
how
Ma, you'll be the scourge of the condo if you bring your friends to see this movie. I would not do that. And she's like, oh, don't be silly. Don't be silly. And she went and she brought all her friends, probably 20 people.
Early bird special, probably.
To see the early bird special. And they all loved it. And that's when we kind of knew it was going to be a hit, because people like your dad and my mom
It's transcending.
loved it.
Yes.
Even my daughters, everybody loved that movie.
It's undeniable. The movie is undeniably funny. I can still watch it over and over from the first notes of music.
Yes.
That
You're laughing.
You're like, it's already hilarious.
Yes.
I watched it last night.
You did.
I'm always afraid with something you love that much, is it going to hold up? It gets better and better. It's just unbelievable.
But that's one of the keys, though, is the opening, the music, and the
Sets the
logo.
tone.
The
Yes,
cast-
yes.
That made people laugh. That was the greatest icebreaker for a movie.
It was.
So people were laughing already before they even saw Borat.
Well, you're coming in, for those of you who knew the character from his show.
Yes.
There was always a Borat segment in
The Ali G Show.
the Ali G Show, which was always my favorite. And now you've given the reins to this maniac.
Yes.
And it's and here's his world.
Yes.
And it couldn't have been better. I'm gonna jump around on the
Please.
subject, but he has said he's not gonna do more Borat movies because he's known by too many people. And so he can't have that relationship with strangers that he had. So
Right.
But my feeling is the character is so good that who cares? Some of the funniest stuff in Borat is scripted anyway.
That's very true. The
And
naked
you
fight
could-
was.
Exactly.
There's no pranking anybody until they get out to the mortgage convention.
Yes, which you can still
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
It's still a naked guy running through your
Yeah.
thing.
You could stay. You're right. I agree with you.
He could be Inspector Clouseau in different adventures that
That's
are
right.
scripted.
That's
Why
right.
not? Will
That's
you
right.
please talk to him, or you don't talk to him anymore?
We don't talk anymore.
That's part of the book too. People are going to have to.
Right.
Yeah. There's a
Right.
certain.
But I agree.
I'm so
But I
sorry.
agree with you, though. I do agree with you. There was no reason. We thought about a sequel at the time. He was absolutely aghast at the very idea of doing a sequel at that time.
Right.
And then years and years went by. By that time, we weren't talking anymore.
Uh-huh.
He did that one a few years ago.
Yes, I saw it. Yes.
But I agree with you. I mean, to me, he is a comic genius. I absolutely, I believe that more than anybody, standing right next to him for so long. He could do all kinds of things. He has to sort of discipline himself to give that kind of performance, learn lines, staging, hitting marks, stuff like that. If he could do that kind of stuff, he could do anything he wanted. He's a Peter Sellers level talent.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
why I mentioned that. But listen, it could still be loosely written.
Yes.
And you have good actors like on Curb who can improvise
Exactly.
with him.
Yes.
By the way, the audience probably wouldn't know who's real and who's not. They don't in Borat.
They don't.
They don't know that Pam Anderson is in on it.
Right, that's right. It doesn't really matter
It doesn't.
If it, like you said, if it transcends in some way and people just are erupting with laughter, they don't care what the reality is anymore. They just care that it's funny.
Let's get him on the phone. Let's get him. Because I think the world needs this character. It's his best invention.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, because you're tapping into that innocence too.
Yes.
That was the thing that really made people love him,
Yes.
despite the anti-Semitism, despite the fact he's a rapist, he's incestuous. All those things are true, and yet there was
You're making him
innocence.
sound like not a great guy.
because
But there was
we're
an
in on the
innocence.
joke
Yes,
that he's satirizing
that's right.
and he's
He's
anything
a
but
character,
that.
right? We know, the audience knows, and they accept it. They are willing to roll with that. They were from the very beginning of the movie, from
Yes.
the screaming music and the
Hysterical.
logo. People were ready to
In
go
on
on
the
the
joke.
roller coaster.
Yes, he's skewering
Yeah. Yes.
the real racists and the
right,
real thing.
exactly,
Now, let me
exactly.
ask you about this.
Yes,
when
sir.
you're making David, I'm so sorry for
Whoa.
but I'm so
This is great.
This is my like it's a religion with me. There isn't, and maybe this goes to why you don't talk anymore. And I never want to say anything negative about anybody or anything.
Which makes you very different from Larry.
However, there's moments in the movie that are a little mean-spirited to me,
Yes.
where he is going after someone who did him no wrong,
Right.
and, for instance, destroying his shop while the
Right.
guy watches.
Yes.
I mean, it's not nice.
Yes. You see
And
me
he's-
laughing because I have a certain degree of sadism in me.
You like that?
Well, I felt the guilt.
Yes.
At the same time, I found it hilarious. That was my dichotomy in making the movie quite often was, oh my God, this poor guy.
Yes.
But he would be compensated afterwards. You know.
We don't know that.
Yes, I know, but I
Yeah.
knew. At
Yes,
least.
yes,
So
yeah.
I felt justified on some level.
So you're
You
paying
know.
for everything you broke.
Right, exactly.
And I think the justification was a short shot of a Confederate flag outside the store, which made him
Right.
fair game.
Even that maybe was, not enough really to destroy the store because they did seem like sort of innocent people. And there were times when I had moral quandaries about what we were doing, but I felt like it was going to be funny. And,
Yes.
and I had a kind of like a sort of a tunnel vision
Yeah.
about getting the funniest thing I possibly could on film and sort of looking past my own limitations, my own barricades, my own boundaries,
Yes.
and pushing past that and seeing what would happen. And sometimes you were in this kind of morally ambiguous area.
But because he's heroic in his hilarity,
Yeah.
I want him to be perfect.
Yes.
I want him
Yes.
not to go over that. We just happen to be sitting under a poster of Pee-wee,
Right.
who is the ultimate innocent,
Yes.
and
Who I love as well.
you don't have that.
Yeah.
He would never go there. But
Right.
Sasha, I feel, has no problem going.
Yeah, Sasha's a little more sadistic maybe than Paul Rubens was, and even more than I was. And his writers were probably more sadistic than either he or I. So they wanted to often go for it. And we did have these kind of Talmudic discussions.
It is, though. It
Yes.
goes to character and
Absolutely.
and message.
Yeah, and ethics
And
also.
if 99% of your movie is inclusive comedy,
Yes.
and 1% is exclusive, screw that guy,
That's right.
you hurt your character.
Yes, it's true. Well, that was the risk.
Yeah.
At the time that we were doing it, we recognized there were times when you had a person and you were kind of punching down maybe.
Yes.
Or you were going for an easier laugh.
Yes.
And that was kind of a constant Talmudic dialogue that we had about, is this worth doing? Are we going to get enough payoff from this?
Yeah.
Is it funny enough to justify possibly, kind of invading that moral boundary,
Yeah.
So that was a very serious philosophical discussion that we often had. I mean, look, that took place on Seinfeld too.
Yeah.
And on Curb as well. There are
Yes.
times
Oh,
when
yeah.
Larry behaves really badly.
Yes.
And I would be disturbed, and he usually was not as disturbed, and he would have some kind of rationalization. Or on Seinfeld, we would do something with a handicapped person. We did
Yeah.
it on Curb as well.
Yeah.
But we sort of justified it, we rationalized it, and I came to a conclusion that it was usually okay, and that people would accept it and not take it to heart so much.
Different
because it was
characters, though.
funny. Different characters. Very much.
Right?
Very much.
We-
but it is
we
a
know that-
quandary. I don't know if you had this same problem on Ray.
Yeah.
But on Seinfeld and Curb, this was also a conversation that we had quite often. Is it right to do this? Is this funny? Does this go too far? Is this really a good laugh?
Yeah.
You know, there's a good laugh and a bad laugh. You know, and sometimes things were like on that line, blurring that line.
Yes.
And you would take that risk and see if it worked out.
I think of you as opposite ends of the spectrum of extremely funny people I've ever
Well, I'm-
met.
I'm-
in terms
Well, there's a lot of
light and
we
dark.
have a lot of overlap too.
And Larry is one of my comedy heroes for his body work, and we were going to work together on something.
Yes.
And I still think we should.
I would love to.
Two
you know.
old men who can
I'm
maybe.
ready, man.
Should we tell the people what we were going to do?
Sure, the Action Bronson. And I was trying to. I couldn't remember what made it fall apart. I thought.
I know
it was-
what made it fall
Tell
apart.
Tell me.
So here was the premise. The premise was, you know who Action Bronson is? He does a food show called Fuck That's Delicious, which is a little bit the opposite of my show, although he gets as enthusiastic maybe as I do. But he's a wonderful, bigger than life character. He's a large white rapper who has an enormous following, and he's street smart and street funny. And he married, I think, a woman from Colombia.
Maybe so. Yes.
Yes. She didn't want to live in the city anymore. She wanted to live in the suburbs. So right away we go, that's funny.
Yeah.
Let's do a reality series
Yeah.
and put him in different situations
In the suburbs.
Yes. And script it lightly and put him in situations. He was on board, everything going great. And then here's how it fell apart. He decided he doesn't want to move to the suburbs.
That's right.
He's not going.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other and said, we don't have a show.
Yeah.
That's
What
it.
are we going to do now?
That was the show.
That's the show he was already doing.
It was going to be a kind of modern Green Acres.
Yes, right. Fish out of water.
Yeah.
Perfect classic thing, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the naked fight also.
Yes.
I think that even though there was nakedness, there's a classic quality to that comedy as well, which your dad, you talked about Jack Benny,
Yeah.
your dad responded to, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people have forgotten that. So
Funny is funny.
you ask people about Jack Benny today,
Yes,
and they
they
don't
don't
know who
know.
it is.
I know,
They
it's
have
so
no
sad.
idea. Who
And
it
I
is.
think
He
his
was a
sensibility
global
was
star.
one of the most modern of all the great old comedians.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of old comedy doesn't really kill me, but Jack Benny, I found him.
Well, Conan has been completely influenced by Jack Benny.
Sure.
Conan is all self-deprecating and hysterical. You know, he's got these traits, his vanity and everything.
Right,
For
right.
those who don't know, Jack Benny, a nebbishy-looking guy with glasses,
Yeah.
considered himself really handsome. He was really cheap,
really
which was
cheap. That was his thing.
sensational.
And he was 39 years old. He was always 39.
Always 39. He's going to play the violin badly because he knows he's great.
Yeah, that's right.
And his timing, everything about him
His
was
timing was
hysterical.
amazing.
And
And that great line about the guy holds him up, your money or your life. And
Long
he
pause
and
on
he's-
the radio first,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And he says, I'm thinking, you know. Yeah, he had it. He was great. But they also broke the fourth wall.
Yes.
Those people, Jack Benny, George
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
They had those TV shows where
Yeah.
they would talk to the camera.
So
Both
good.
It was
brilliant,
kind
I
of
think.
radical, really, in a way, too, at that time.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved
But people don't know. I was going to say Johnny Carson was also influenced by Jack Benny, and people have
Yes.
started to forget Johnny Carson also.
I
you know.
know.
which seems insane.
David, what are you going to do about this?
Oh,
Well, what could you do, David?
yeah, absolutely
I ask
nothing.
you.
Well, no, it's funny when you said I'm thinking that great line. I wonder if like the kid in you who loved great comedians, when you have a line that enters public consciousness, like not that there's anything wrong with that. Like that is a line that to me says so much about like even what's going on in our culture right now, like the battle between woke and non-woke.
Yes,
like it is
yes.
literally, it crystallizes
You're right.
like exactly the sort
Absolutely.
of cultural hot points that allowed the son of Fred Trump to do a lot of things in this world.
Well, it taps into something that both Phil and I know, which is the X factor of comedy. Like, why did that catch on? Why is something a hit? Why do people connect?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
It is.
It is. You could analyze it, you could break it down, but in the end, it is a mystery. We really don't know what it is. That line came out of desperation.
Right.
You know, we could not do that show without having some line that allowed them to make these kind of jokes, and then they could back off the joke by having not that there's anything wrong with that. And that kind of saved that episode, but there was no thought of like, that's going to be a catchphrase or people are going to be saying that 30 years from now. None of that at all. That was a shock. You know, there was no way to predict that. You had no way to predict this show's going to be a hit. It's still going to be talked about years later. There's no real understanding, no logic to that. And that's what's kind of the beauty of it too.
My favorite Seinfeld stuff, and tell me if you agree, having worked on the show extensively, is the relatable things, the Larry and Jerry's sensibility as observational comedians.
Yes.
The stuff of life.
Yeah.
That's like, when you say that line, not that there's anything wrong with that, we all relate to it because we know we have to be politically correct.
Yes, exactly.
That line is about being politically correct and how almost bullshitty we all are, right? That we have this panacea to say, okay. And I'll go one step further in my favorite stuff about Seinfeld. I might have said this on other podcasts that we've done. To me, the strongest episodes were when all four characters were relating to the single story.
Yes. Tough to do, as you know. That's a tough one to accomplish. But yes, they had a kind of a unified theme to it.
Right.
Everybody was kind of
waiting at the Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
The contest.
And I would say that waiting at the Chinese restaurant in some ways is one of the most brilliant episodes.
It is, but you can't do it all the time.
You can't do it.
You need a story sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was, we had a big argument at that time about there's no story.
Yes.
You know, to me, it was like a Beckett play.
It is like, a Beckett play.
It's, you know, only it's four Jews in a Chinese restaurant, you know.
Or you're
in
a parking garage.
In a parking garage. Or like you say, the contest, everybody was unified in that as well. Yeah, those are brilliant episodes. And that's Larry David. That's Larry David's sensibility. Not even Jerry so much. Jerry understood how brilliant it was. He got it. He knew that there was something brilliant because there really was a contest. Larry, a lot of people, you know, like Jason would come up early in the show and go, look at this stuff, man. Nobody would ever do this in a million years. And Larry would go, I did it. You know, and things like the contest were examples of that.
He really had
a contest with the real Kramer, you know, where they
who can go the longest.
A masturbation contest.
It's phenomenal. First of all, the subject matter, of course, is hilarious and edgy and great.
And no notes.
And finding a way to do it on TV.
No notes.
By that time.
No notes.
By that time, no notes. Season 1, you would have had a note.
There's no bad words said. There's no, you know, it's like the language was master of my domain. Those kind of language things were also kind of brilliant.
It's the best to say it without saying it.
Yeah.
But then, tell me how you felt about this. I felt that the show started veering into almost too much story, meaning all four characters had their own story that in a convoluted meta way, meaning we're commenting on the ridiculousness of the sitcom.
Yes.
All four stories meet up at the end in a crazy way.
Well, I think the show, I was gone. I left. I reached a certain point creatively, which is the reason I left.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, wow, I feel like I've hit a creative wall here.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why.
You saw that starting to happen.
Yeah, it was becoming external.
Yes.
The show was a very internal show. It was about what was inside the desires and cravings inside these characters that drove them to do terrible things sometimes that were funny. But eventually, the people writing the show, who were great writers, amazing writers, but they did not have that inside of them as much as like Larry David did or I did, this kind of like problem, you know, this damage that we had inside of us that allowed us to come up with those stories. They had to externalize those things and they became more plotty as opposed to character driven. And I agree, that was one of the things I think that changed the tone of the show a little bit. Not that the audience necessarily noticed. You know, the audience still watched.
But they noticed enough
Yeah.
to reject the finale,
Yes.
which was so meta
Yes.
that it went over their heads.
Yes, that's
Didn't even
true.
get it.
By that time, yeah.
Right?
And again, comedy people like yourself
Yeah.
also saw that shift take place. So it's true. And I don't think those episodes are as beloved as the earlier episodes in some ways because of that.
Well, when you miss Larry's hand in it.
Very much. I mean,
But then
Larry
you
was so
get it.
idiosyncratic and unique
Yes.
that taking away his voice changed. That's the reason why everybody became much more. And I was gone before he was.
Yeah.
But that's why I think the writers became more desperate to try to find story
Yeah.
rather than what's inside of George. They had kind of reached George's limits of what was inside of him.
Yeah.
And they had to start externalizing circumstances to put George into it.
Reading the book, and I've thought a lot about Seinfeld,
Yeah.
written a lot about Seinfeld. I have a different view of how it got so great. In part, I always think I had the idea of the Lennon and McCartney of Jerry and Larry being the Lennon. But what I realized is, I think very crucial was, and I didn't realize how you were sort of a three-way machine early on in terms of those early times. And I think it's like Lennon, McCartney, and you were Bukowski. It was like that was that the sort of, and you read the book and you look at a lot of your work, the dark ride, the sort of wild element, the sort of radical element to it all. I think a lot of it came from you. At least that's when I look at some of those episodes, I see some of the real interesting dark undercurrents.
Well, a couple of things. One is I used to compare myself, and this is maybe a little pretentious, to George Harrison in that situation because I felt they were John and Paul. They're the greatest songwriters in the world, and I'm here, and I do have my ideas, but you could maybe get one song on the album.
Right.
And so over time, I was feeling that kind of desire to break out a little bit, which eventually I did. But the show itself also, the original version of the show was much more traditional sitcom. It was much more like the Apartment. Kramer would come in, he would do his bit and leave. And the idea of expanding on that really was partially my responsibility because I felt like Kramer was an underused character. I felt like he was untapped, and I knew the real Kramer, Kenny Kramer. Did you know Kenny Kramer?
Nope.
Yeah, he was Larry's next door neighbor.
I took his tour. I actually went on that tour.
That's
wow.
funny. Yeah.
Wow.
He's a very eccentric guy himself, very different than Michael.
Yes.
And I knew Michael's potential, Michael's ferocious potential as a comedian himself. And I felt like this is a character that I could express myself through. And that helped kind of expand the show, And I think that same thing happened with Julia because, again, I've talked about this before and it's somewhat controversial, but we didn't know how to write women. We just didn't know how to write women. And eventually Julia came in and she was kind of upset because she was being underused. And she was like weeping. She felt so strongly about it. And we felt so guilty. And we knew she was right. And we were trying to figure out, again, talking about externalizing things. We really didn't know how to write women to make them funny. And it was kind of an issue at that time. Now, you did it very well.
Thank you. Carol Leifer on staff?
Not at that point. Carol Leifer didn't come along until years later.
But she was loosely based on Carol.
Well, partially Carol, partially Elaine Pope, who was written on Fridays and was very close with Larry and me.
Right.
So there was a few different people that Elaine was a composite of. But again, we did not have stories for her. We really didn't. She was like a supporting player.
Right.
And then she came in saying, "You're not taking advantage of me." And we knew this was true. We knew how talented she was. And we were limited just as humans.
This season one?
This is like season, I guess so. Whatever season one is considered,
Right.
The first 13 episodes, I think. And we had the idea of giving Elaine we had numerous George stories and we had no Elaine stories. So we gave, and this was kind of the genius move for a bunch of guys that didn't really know how to write a woman. We gave Elaine, one of George's stories. And we said, let's see how she does. Let's see how this character does with the same neurosis, the same darkness.
Because it turns out women are people.
That's right. Women are people.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah. Which in our lives, I mean, we all had women in our lives, from our mothers and our wives and all that kind of, but writing something funny, that's another leap that we had not taken at that point. And once we did that, we saw, first of all, Julia, of course, had this range that had not been tapped into at all. And she was not afraid to look bad or be, vain or petty or whatever the things were that made up her character eventually. But also that there was enough neurosis inside of that character to start exploring that. And that opened up, that liberated Kramer, taking Kramer out of the usual traditional neighbor thing and taking Julia out of the traditional supporting player thing really exploded the show, really liberated the show.
Yeah.
And those were lucky things that happened, again, out of desperation. As you know, you're desperately trying to write scripts for the next week. And this is how that show evolved and just happened to tap into something.
Yeah, opened a huge vein there.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very lucky.
Yeah.
You did it so well with Doris Roberts
thanks.
and Patricia Heaton. I mean, you had no problem doing it, actually, it seemed.
All we were doing was taking dictation at home.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
And when you start to see the actor's strength, like, oh my God, she can cry funny. Now you got Mary Tyler Moore. Now you can.
Exactly.
She's just not the straight man for the rest of the family. Oh my God. And what if you start exploring her being wrong about something?
Right.
And being vain or petty. Also, that's everything.
They were modern characters, though, too.
Yes.
The characters on your show, like on Seinfeld, were very modern characters because even Mary Tyler Moore was a dignified, she was funny, she was great, it was breakthrough, but it was very dignified. Always dignified, you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas the characters on your show or on Seinfeld, like Elaine, they were willing to be undignified, and almost there was a kind of almost a Lucy strain to that as well,
Yes.
So if you start to trace it that way, you start to see the influences.
Yeah, and people think that this is a modern, like you said, a modern woman, but you go back to the Honeymooners.
Yes.
She's giving it right back to him. She's the boss of that house.
That was a great character. You're
right.
Yes.
She's not, here's your lunch, honey.
That's right.
She's like, get it yourself.
Yeah.
And calling him fat and everything.
That's
right.
right.
I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah. She was
strong
tough.
Female character.
Yes.
Lucy, strong female character.
Yes.
She's in it for her.
Yeah. Even though, the only difference I would say is that those were, once they discovered that, once you discovered who Ralph Cramden's wife was like, what she was like, Audrey Meadows, and once you discovered what Lucy was like, they pretty much stuck to the formula.
True.
Lucy wanted to be in show business. Desi wasn't going to let her.
Right.
So she was going to sneak around him somehow and try to do it. And that became like 20 years worth of shows. They really did that for a long time.
Hilarious.
Whereas with us, we couldn't rely on that formula again and again and again. We had to expand those characters. We had to keep finding new stuff for them. Yeah. And that was the challenge of sitcoms in the 90s, I think, to some degree, was to keep it somewhat, don't veer too far.
Yes.
You've cracked the code.
Yes.
Don't veer too far from it, but you can't just repeat it.
But one way it did veer that I don't think you were as comfortable with and ultimately may have been part of why you left is the show began to reflect the economic circumstances of the people making it. Is that fair to say that when they started going to the Hamptons, it didn't quite speak to you?
Their problems changed. It's sort of the same problem. When we started having a writing staff, which we hadn't had really at that point. It was just really Larry, Jerry, and myself. Eventually, there was a couple of other writers, but then eventually, once I left and then Larry left, they hired like writers who were all, again, top-notch writers, but they had gone to Harvard. Their parents were doctors and lawyers.
Yes.
They their problems were different. They didn't have to worry about paying rent. They didn't have to worry about how they were going to get by. And so suddenly shows were more about affluence than they were about the working class. And that did shift the show. And I didn't feel as comfortable with that sort of humor as what became the prevalent thing on that show in some ways. And I think that did change things for me a bit.
They wanted to write what they knew. And that's one of the problems.
That's right. That's
Once
right.
you've had success, now you're writing about
Success.
You're made.
Yes, exactly. And that's what happened on that show to some degree. And that was another thing that kind of shifted it.
You're a limo driver.
That's right. All that kind of stuff. Right. Instead of like stealing the limo,
Yeah.
which is an episode that I wrote.
Yeah.
They would have the limo. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
What's funny is on Raymond, he was a sports writer for a major newspaper.
Right.
But we played it down. We didn't talk about the money he had. Money was never an issue.
Right.
Middle class. That's it. We're not, because it can't be about that. Nobody wants to see a show about money.
Well, it's funny because Larry on Curb also broke that mold.
Absolutely, because they know him as Rich Larry David,
right.
who co-created
Everybody
Seinfeld.
on the show, like everybody in the audience, knows he's a wealthy guy.
Right.
So he had to kind of offset that by being disparaging about everything.
And hating life.
And that formula kind of worked,
Absolutely.
That
but
formula worked
that
also.
show is about that.
Yeah,
about
that's
a guy
right.
who has everything and is still the most miserable misanthrope.
Which again, if you look back to trace it, to me,
Yeah.
I've said this to Larry many times.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing to W.C. Fields that I had ever seen.
Right.
He was like a misanthrope.
Absolutely.
But he's a misanthrope who's put upon by everybody,
Yes.
And that's why, to me, I don't know if you've watched any W.C. Fields recently.
Love it.
Watch The Bank Dick or something.
Yep.
It holds up because it's attitude. It's not, the Marx Brothers I loved as a kid, and it's still clever, but it's a lot of puns and jokes and things like that. And it's a little corny at times. But W.C. Fields remains modern because it's all about his attitude. He doesn't have jokes. He just has an attitude that is hilarious and equally relevant today.
The mumbling under his breath about what an asshole that guy is.
Yeah. That's right. So that is something that attitude really kind of like survives, whereas jokes kind of get old after a while. And that may be a little difference in the humor.
Speaking about the misanthropic side of things,
Yes.
I should say that Phil's about to read this book. I have burned through it. It is a great read. And I would also say, to quote Bruce Springsteen, who I found out he went running with Fairfax around the track once.
What?
But, he'll tell me about that.
Yes.
But I will say this is a dark ride. And
It does get a little dark.
And one of the things that's interesting, you call it Comedy Samurai, which I wanted to ask you about, because the interesting is one of the characters you meet, and one who comes off better than most, even though it was not a fun project for you, Nick Cage is one of the only other people who ever referred to himself as a samurai to me.
Yes.
But when I was around the time of Adaptation, and I was writing about him in Rolling Stone, and he said something about, the guy asked him about something in his family, and he said, "I can't talk about it because I'm a good samurai." By which he meant, I don't speak of any of
the
this.
honor code.
But this book, I think you're very honorable, but you are very unsparing about yourself,
Yes.
and about a lot of other people. And I wonder, as a result, have anybody who you've fallen out with and don't talk to anymore, anyone called you up? Has it brought you together with anyone, or has it created any new people who won't
I've
talk
had
to
some
you?
threats on the phone. People hang up. No, no, nothing. I haven't got. I mean, my approach to this was I'm going to be honest about everything.
Yeah.
To a fault. I want to be honest, but if I'm going to say honest things about Sasha or Larry or whoever whom I love, and I'm very clear that I love them and honor them and admire them, but I also had these issues with them, I have to be honest about myself as well. And I felt that balanced it out. As long as I was telling the truth about myself, not putting myself on a pedestal and judging them, but going, if they did something, I also want you to know I was bad too. I did some things that I regret, that I'm sorry about, that I've hurt people in real life, and I felt like I need to talk about that if I'm going to talk about these other people.
Have you heard from them about how they feel about
Well, my
portrayal in the
daughters, I
book?
want to, like for instance, my kids, I was very kind of, worried about how they would react to the book, I talk about the problems in my first marriage and things like that. And I'm close with my kids and, kind of walk them through, particularly my oldest daughter, who's a producer on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So she's used to conflict.
Yes.
Even though she's the least Real Housewife you could imagine.
Yeah.
But I wanted them to feel okay about me being this honest about things and not going out of my way to hurt people.
Yeah.
You know, I tried to be honest without going out of my way to hurt people. And I pulled back in certain situations rather than just be, I didn't want to be nasty. I didn't want to be random in my honesty. I wanted it to have some sort of point that was larger than me.
Yes.
In some way. And that was a challenge.
I think you're generally
writing-wise.
fair and balanced to humans, maybe not agents. I think if as a subspecies,
Well, there wasn't that much to say positive in a lot of those situations.
Yes.
About agents?
Yeah. Well, I had some, I had a very long relationship with Ari Emanuel that ended really poorly. A lot of, that's what I'm saying. That's why I have to take responsibility. A lot of my relationships end poorly.
Really?
Yeah. And
Maybe we shouldn't work together.
it's true. I'm warning you now. I'm putting you on
I don't think
notice
it would
now. happen.
I like you too
I
much.
agree. And I actually see myself as a very easygoing, collaborative person.
It's
actually.
everyone else.
Yes. But
I know that feeling.
But Ari, I think, Ari and I had some, ultimate issues towards the end of our relationship that were problematic. And I talk about that in the book pretty extensively.
And no, it's really powerful. Anyone who thinks they want to get into show business, it's a really good look at
Oh, it's a cautionary
the good,
tale.
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes,
and
right.
even like the economic, like there's a little real talk because in a certain way, and I've seen it in my own weird career, because I sort of came out of journalism and ended up working on a lot of TV, and you see,
Yes.
like when there's money to be divided, people behave interestingly.
Right. It changes people. Now it doesn't always change people for the worse, but it will change people. I mean, it can't not. These external factors, your environment is nature and nurture, and you are who you are when you come to that place when you start making money. But having that money subtly can change things. And I saw it happen not just with like Larry and people like that, but I worked with David Steinberg. I used to write material for David Steinberg. That he did on the Tonight Show and stuff, and he worked with Burt Reynolds. He was a partner of Burt Reynolds.
That's right.
And he would say to me, Burt Reynolds has no idea what a loaf of bread costs in the store, and we would laugh, ha ha ha. And then he eventually became that person, and then I eventually became that person too. So it happens. It really does happen. It sneaks up on you.
Success allows you to be the person you want to be.
Right.
It releases the hounds of your personality.
Exactly. And there are hounds inside of us. We do have our demons. So even though the angels may come out, the demons may come out too.
Yes. But I always felt that if you're lucky enough to be successful in any field, especially show business, shouldn't it make you nicer? Shouldn't it make you happier?
It makes sense. It makes sense, but it doesn't work that way, as we know. And I remember many people would come up to Larry once the show got successful, Seinfeld, and they would say things like, "Are you happy? Are you happy now?" And he would go, "No, I'm not happy now. I'm still me." It's like when he won the Emmy, and he said, "This is well and good. I'm still bald."
Fantastic. One of the best lines ever.
Yeah, great line.
Yeah. Ray says he's still neurotic. The same neurotic guy he always was, but now instead of thinking my taxi driver hates me, my limo driver hates me.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting, like in terms of collaborators, like you also worked with my greatest hero, the only artist I ever named one of my sons after, Bob Dylan, who I've had experience with him where I got to collaborate with him for a day. And your book plays out what I experienced, which was like, he is not a disappointment in any.
No,
he is literally as interesting, brilliant, nonlinear, exciting, and I wondered, like, he's also can be very private. I wondered what was it like writing about Masked and Anonymous, which I have still never seen the 3.5-hour version.
Right. No, very few people have. Ari Emanuel is one of the few people that didn't. He hated it. It was an adventure every day working with Bob Dylan. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I would be in the room this far away from him.
Yeah.
And writing with him. And I got to a point where even when I could say to him, Bob, he had a line. He came in with a line one day.
Yeah.
We worked behind this coffee house that he owned. He owned a boxing gym.
Oh, yeah.
on 18th Street in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And we would work at a cubicle, like the size of this table, in the boxing gym, like a closed off cubicle. And he would chain smoke all day. And so we'd work for like 12 hours. So it was like a cloud of smoke in this room. And I wasn't smoking
You
cigarettes.
will live a little less long because of that experience.
No question.
But I had no idea it's that discipline to do that.
Oh yeah, he could go all day. I mean, and he has the greatest memory. He remembers all the lyrics. If you notice, he just used teleprompter in his concerts.
Wow.
He remembers all the lyrics to those long, long songs.
Those songs, I couldn't remember one of them.
It's almost impossible. He remembers it all. He's a savant on some level.
Yes.
That's what's going on. And I compare him and Larry a lot of the time also because they're both savants. They may have been diagnosed if they were being born today and doing what they were doing, they would be diagnosed.
A little on the
put
spectrum.
medication.
Yeah.
But as it was, they would be guys sitting on a park bench doing exactly what they're doing today. This is what they do. If you accept it, great. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, there's nothing they could do about it.
So like when I met Larry, I felt like, every line out of his mouth is an episode. Do you feel like when you're talking to Bob Dylan that every line out of his mouth could be a song or
Exactly.
a poem?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He came in one day when we were writing the script and he had a line which I just couldn't understand. And it was like, I ain't a pig without a wig. And I was like, and I had been working for a while with him at this point. And I said, Bob, I have to say, even in this script that's so weird, that line does not make sense.
I'm not a pig
without a wig. I ain't no pig without a wig. That's the line.
I'm trying to understand it right now.
Yeah, I tried to understand it too. And believe me, I had to try to understand a lot of lines, which wound up being incredible poetry. That line kind of like sort of hit me in the head. I couldn't
Does it
figure
mean
it out.
I am a pig with a wig?
Maybe so. Maybe I'm not fooling anybody.
I'm just a pig with a wig.
Yes, maybe so.
But this is the artistic way of saying that.
Yeah, he would just have a line on a little scrap of paper like that,
Yeah.
And I said, no one is going to understand that line.
Yeah.
And he said, what's so bad about being misunderstood?
Oh.
And I was like, wow, that is heavy.
Yes.
It's like everybody's trying to be understood. He's been understood. He's interested in what happens after you've been understood, when you've been misunderstood. What happens as a result of that? And that's kind of like the Andy Kaufman thing also, which I talk about in the book.
Yeah.
Like what happens when people don't laugh? He was interested in like that.
Performance art.
Yes. He wanted to know what happens when people aren't laughing.
Every interview with
interested in that.
Brando he made it up.
Yeah.
To keep himself entertained.
That's right. That's right. Very similar, I think, again, another very unique personality, Brando.
Yeah.
So, Bob Dylan was, every day, it was like a learning experience.
Right around a similar era, I had a meeting with him where I was supposed to write a treatment for him about an idea he had, which imagine writing a treatment for him. And I learned a few things. He's not only the greatest genius of all time, he is still on some level a nice old Jewish man.
Correct.
He had cookies, black and white cookies wrapped up for my kids who were just babies.
Yeah.
He called down to the front desk and got a deli to bring some cookies for them. So nice old Jewish man. That his thought process is literally not like anyone else's I've ever met. The leaps he took, it was such that on my best focused day we spent like 4 hours in a room together, except when Kevin Spacey called and I had to take the call and took the call. He said, no, you take that call from Kevin Spacey. That was when you still took his call. But the nonlinear thing was I've never had this experience where I had to drive home, stay up all night and process what he was saying. And maybe then I got 80% of it. Yeah. Because I do think he has a kind of genius that it does not follow A to B. Like his memoir even, which again, I don't want to bother you about Bob Dylan all day, but your memoir, interestingly, when I read it, I'm like going, okay, where's the child? As a reader of memoirs and biographies, I tend to skip childhood. Right. And the weird thing is on your book, I didn't have to because you skipped childhood.
Right. I didn't skip it though, actually.
I heard. Okay, tell us what really happened.
I wrote the original draft of this book was over 1,000 pages long. And the first half was about my childhood. Yeah. And my father, who was a failed comedian.
Can you please tell Phil his stage name?
His stage name was Psycho, the Exotic Neurotic.
Wow.
And
how do you spell Psycho?
I think it was SY and then COE, yeah. And he was a failed comedian and a failed actor.
Yeah.
And he was enamored of show business. So I wrote like 500 pages on my very surreal childhood. And then it was a 1,000-page book, and they said you can't publish a 1,000-page book. And I said, why not? Like Moby Dick. I would like try to give them examples, and they were like,
just a different dick.
They would laugh, yeah. And then Barbara Streisand's book came out, which was 1,000 pages, and she's a big star.
Yeah.
And the book bombed. And they
I didn't
said,
know that.
See, that's what a 1,000-page book does
Don't
today.
tell Barbara.
Yeah. In case she's on, you could ask her.
You said, look, she wrote a 1,000-page
She
book,
wrote a 1,000-page
and you're
book.
forcing them to say, Larry,
Right.
you're not Barbara
Exactly.
Streisand.
They had to say that to me. And
Yeah.
so we decided rather than cutting it down chapter by chapter, I would just take the first 500 pages out, start on Fridays.
That's a big cut.
Yeah, that was a
You
big
took
cut.
a big cut.
But I have another book.
There you go.
And so that'll
So
be
if
the
this
next.
does well,
Right, that'll
you
be the
get
next
to do
book.
that.
That's right.
But even if it doesn't, you're gonna do that book.
Yes,
you
that
have
book
to.
will come out.
Yes.
definitely. And that's really fun also. I mean, that's a very interesting book.
Is there stuff that? Oh, you did say you had to cut back on certain things. There's certain stories
Yes.
that you
yes.
thought were too much.
Yeah.
So we'd like you to tell those here.
Right, of course, I understand. I wish I could tell you all the stuff that's in the first half of the book, because a lot of that is fun. I mean, my father would take me, he went to American Academy of Dramatic Arts on the GI Bill.
Yeah.
And Jason Robards was his teacher, another person people
my
don't
God.
remember. And a lot of those guys stayed in show business, even though they didn't become actors. And so he stayed friendly with a lot of these people, and they worked on TV shows. So he would take me, for instance, to the Ed Sullivan Show rehearsals.
Oh, man.
Which was for kids today, like that was as big as Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
right?
it was
the biggest show in the world.
And he would take me like every few weeks. We would go and just sit in the audience at the rehearsals. And my father was enamored of stars and the glamour and the glitz.
Yeah.
But I was seeing for the first time the cameras and what it takes to make a TV show. And I was absolutely transfixed by that.
Who were the acts that you remember?
I remember seeing Diana Ross and the Supremes
Oh.
and Jackie Mason.
Wow.
I never saw the Beatles, which I regretted, but I don't think we were allowed in for the Beatles.
Did all
actually.
the musical acts sing live on the show?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
say for sure.
Well, you saw
but I
rehearsal.
thought so.
You
Yeah,
could tell if
rehearsals they sang.
It
for
was an
sure.
American bandstand.
Yeah,
It
that's
was.
right.
It was
They
real.
were singing live. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a great
I'll bet it was.
experience. And he would stop, if he saw a celebrity on the street, he would stop them and start talking to them. And so I remember as a little kid in Manhattan, he'd be holding my hand and he'd be talking to Tom Poston or
What?
people like that,
Now you're name dropping.
Yeah.
And it was like that really, and he was more concerned that I knew the dialogue from Public Enemy or White Heat.
Not the group, not the rap group Public Enemy. You mean
no,
the
right,
Cagney?
the movie Public Enemy with Jimmy Cagney, than math or science or stuff like that. So I have like a mind of trivia I'm filled up with because he planted it in me.
You're saying he didn't care if you did well in school as
He
long
didn't
as
care
you
if
knew
I
these
did,
movie
he wasn't
references?
paying attention to any of that. He really wasn't. And he was starting to drift himself at a certain point. By the time my brother, who was like 3 years younger, was born, I was lucky. I got the best of my father because he was enthusiastic. He was really into being a dad at that time.
Yeah.
And he loved taking me to the movies and to these rehearsals. We lived down the street from the Kraft Music Hall,
Yeah.
the NBC studio on Avenue M. And he would take me here. The lighting director was a buddy of his. So we'd watch those like Don Rickles kind of
my God.
rehearsals. So I saw and there was a place called Cookies, which was across the street, which was like a steakhouse that we would go to. The three of us, my mother and he and I, and Groucho Marx would be there.
Come on.
Yes.
Wait, you met Groucho?
I met when I was a little kid.
You remember that?
Yes, I do. I was told that.
Okay.
I was told that because there was a back room,
Yeah.
and I was known as the Wandering Jew.
Yeah.
And as a little kid, and I wandered into the back room. When they found me, I was on Groucho Marx's
What?
lap.
What?
Yes. So I had like this.
Do you remember things he said to you?
No, nothing. But
he was a sweet man.
I don't know if I even remember it. I was probably 3-4 years old. I mean, I wasn't even old enough to remember stuff,
You have to buy Comedy Samurai. If there's two books you're going to buy this year, the two greatest page turners were the Peter Wolf book, which I think
Right, I heard that's
which
great.
is
I'm looking
crazy
forward
with
to
the
reading
media
that.
He's got
stuff,
amazing
remarkable.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is waking up at the movie theater as a little kid and it's having his head on the shoulder, on the lap of Marilyn Monroe. I mean,
Oh
that's,
my God! And he married Faye Dunaway. My
yeah,
God!
Oh, and there's stories.
That's a
of-
book.
stories,
That's
right?
a book in itself.
But I'm saying, if you have a late summer beach read, you need Comedy Samurai and Peter Wolf's.
I will read the Peter
memoir.
Wolf book for
I
sure.
can see Larry on the beach with
There's one story about your dad that I don't know if I heard you tell it on podcast or if it's in the book. The photo with Jerry,
Yeah. Well,
which is a revealing
he
and
he had
painful
no
story.
interest in my career. He got very competitive with me, sort of, and he was uncomfortable. He never would mention anything about
This is as you're working on the show?
yeah,
Okay.
working and starting to have success. And
Yeah.
he just didn't really. I won an Emmy, and he called me up and said, "Wow, you look fat." You know, that was his line to me when I won the Emmy.
That's not as
Fix-Up.
charming as the Larry David line about bald.
Right, exactly. But then he when Seinfeld got successful, he came out to California with his wife at the time, and he's like, "Look, I have to have a picture with Jerry Seinfeld." And I said, "Dad, I don't do stuff like that. I don't ask for favors. Forget about it. I'm
Yeah.
not taking you in. I'm not going to ask Jerry for that favor. I don't want anybody. I don't want to owe anybody. I don't. I just don't want that connection."
Yeah.
So every day for that week he was there, he'd go, "Come on, take me into work. Get me that picture with Jerry Seinfeld." That's what he wanted more than anything. And I was kind of angry at him for his apathy. And I refused to do it. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every day he would ask me in the morning before I went to work. And on Friday, he's like, "Come on, this is my last day. You got to give me that picture." And he broke me down. And I said, "Okay, fine, let's go." Got him in the car, drove to Studio City. And we went into the offices, and there was Jerry, who's the most genial,
Yeah.
generous, sweet person. And I go, "Jerry, this is my dad. He really wants to get a picture." He goes, "Oh, of course." He stops me.
Yeah.
"Come on, let's go outside. We'll take a picture."
Uh-huh.
Go outside. One of the writer's assistants, my father gives him the camera. My father doesn't know how to work the camera. So he gives the camera. We give the camera to the writer's assistant. And as Jerry's getting ready to take the picture of my dad, Jerry goes, "Larry, get in here with the picture. Be in the picture with us, three of us." So I get into the picture. The three of us, they take the picture. And then my father goes, "If it's all right, I just want to get a picture of just me and Jerry." So I step
There's
out.
the tell.
I step out. They take the picture. And then about a year later, I go to see my father in his apartment in Great Neck at that time. And there on the mantle is the picture of him and Jerry.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That was my
That's,
father.
That says
Wow.
it all.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my father.
Does your mother come alive in the first 1,000 pages? of
Yes,
the
very
character?
much. Because she was also like a showbiz wannabe. She was a singer. She made a little record when she was a teenager, but was thwarted. There was like her parents were like, they tried to thwart me, even my grandparents,
Yeah.
from doing this. They were like, "You got to get married and have kids. That's what you're doing. You're not going into show business. You're not going to do that kind of stuff." And and they kind of broke her down, really. And she didn't find herself until she moved to the condos
Yeah.
years later, and she would be the star of the condo shows.
Oh, great.
And she finally came alive. She would star in Chicago, and do all those kind
Did
of
you go
shows.
see her?
Oh, yeah. I went to
Oh.
see her, and she was like, she was in heaven. She really was. I mean, that was like
I
her.
love that.
She would dance, she would sing, she acted, she did everything at the condos, and they were like, great audiences, and it was really fun to see
And
her.
you stayed close to both parents to the end?
Yeah, it was much easier to stay close to my mother.
Yeah.
My mother was eventually killed in a car accident.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, terrible, terrible thing.
Ugh.
My father was just checked out for many years. Like, he just did not really communicate. It was hard to have conversations with him.
Well, he had problems, obviously.
Yeah. And
Where did he live?
He had an apartment in Great Neck,
Oh,
and my mother lived in Boynton Beach.
okay.
So my mother was
Where
like
my dad lived as
Oh,
well.
yeah?
Everyone ends up in.
in Boynton Beach.
Beach.
Yeah.
Did your dad remarry?
My dad remarried, and his wife and my mother died within a couple of days of each other. So that kind of put him out. That was it for him. And he kind of shut down after that. He lived to be like in his 90s.
Yeah.
But he was kind of broken down himself. And so I was never as close to him, even though I had that great closeness when we were young.
Yeah.
Once I was an adult, it was very hard to be close to him. My brother had the same issue.
That's so hard.
Yeah,
So
and my
hard.
mother was like a saint. My mother was such a supportive person. Like, I worked on Arsenio, and I was a writer on the staff, a staff
Yes,
writer.
yes.
And she would call me and go, "I don't know, am I crazy, or is your name a little bigger than the other names on the credits? You know, she would be like that kind of person, you know.
She
Like
saw it
that's-
as bigger.
Yeah, she saw it as
That's
bigger.
so sweet.
Yeah, she was really, really sweet person.
Well, I have to ask you, did you feel like you had the same sensibility as Arsenio? Did you appreciate his sense of humor?
I will tell you, when I got the job,
Yeah.
the idea was, what I pitched to him was I'd like to write these Richard Pryor type monologues for him. And he was really into that.
Uh-huh.
And then he tried a few things like that. And it's hard to kind of understand the context. He was like a black star on TV at that time.
Yes.
And that engendered so much hate. I can't begin to tell you.
If you could tell Phil about the fan mail that
He
you
used to get, this is before the internet, of course, he would get stacks of hate mail. Stacks of hate mail. And I don't mean like we don't like you. I mean like we're going to fucking kill you.
Oh my God.
We're going to come. We're waiting for you outside the studio. We are going to shoot you. We're going to take a broomstick and shove it up your, you know.
Oh my God.
Horrible, violent stuff that he was dealing with. And eventually he just was like, I can't do these jokes. So he started doing really easy.
You mean the mail was generated from the type of material he was doing?
It was just
or
by
just
being,
racist,
yes,
horrible.
Yes, just by being a black guy, a successful
TV,
black guy
right.
on TV. It was unusual at that time.
And did that
You know?
affect his persona on TV?
He played it way safer. I mean, if he shook hands with a white female guest,
Yes.
the switchboard would light up. You
So,
know?
Okay, so I always thought he was somewhat mild, and it
Yes.
turns out that's why.
Yes.
So he's funnier than he could.
and a good guy. I've worked with him.
He's a
as
great
well.
guy.
He's a good guy.
Yes.
So, I love hearing this because
yeah.
it's so awful, first of all.
Yeah.
But second of all, he's funnier. He was funnier than he allowed himself to be.
Yeah, I think if you met him, you would think he's a cool guy. He is
Of
a cool
course.
guy. He really is.
By the way, he's funny in the Eddie Murphy movies when he's playing
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, he's
when he's
good.
in the barbershop doing those characters.
Yeah, he couldn't
he's really
do it
good.
on TV. He had to do cheap jokes, easy jokes, which I couldn't write. And so for the last 6 months of my contract, I didn't
Yeah.
get a joke on.
Wow.
And eventually he had to let me go.
Wow.
Yeah. So and I supported him because I understood what he was going through, but I had a little baby and all this kind of stuff,
Oh
and
my
I was
God.
like going to be screwed.
Yeah.
But I knew I was getting fired.
See,
know?
you never know.
But who did you
watch-
run into on the lot?
Yeah, I was
At the
about to
very
be.
end.
I knew the contract was about to be up. I was going to be fired.
Yeah.
It was on Paramount. We worked in this crappy trailer,
Yeah.
the writers, and I was standing outside the trailer one day, going, "What am I going to do? Look, I'm looking for a sign. What am I going to do? I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, this could be it for me." And sometimes it is it.
Yeah.
For some people, that's the end.
Yeah.
And I knew Jack Nicholson was on the lot because he was doing the two Jakes, and
Oh,
I'd
man.
seen his car in the
Which
parking.
I think is still better than Chinatown.
Huh, interesting.
I don't think.
But I'd see his parking space and I'd see his car in the parking space. So I knew he was around, you know,
Yeah.
but I never saw him.
Yeah.
And that day I was kind of hanging out outside, really, really beside myself with grief about my future, you know. And then I saw in the distance the red convertible Mercedes slowly kind of rolling towards me. And it rolls and I see the Laker hat
Oh,
and the shades. I know it's him.
here comes the coolest man in the world.
Coolest man in the world. Exactly. Especially at that time.
Yeah.
And he kind of cruises by me. And as he cruises by, he looks at me and I look at him. And for whatever reason, we both explode with laughter. We just explode with laughter, laughing really hard. And he just goes, "Yeah, it's funny." And he just goes on.
The cosmic joke.
And I'm like, oh, that's it. Of course, it's a joke. It's a game. This whole thing, I'm taking it too seriously. I have to relax. I have to just enjoy the trip. You know, he beat the system. He beat the game. That's how you do it. You laugh at it, you know, and I took all this from that little encounter. And the next day, Larry David called me up and said,
Whoa.
"I'm doing this Seinfeld thing. You want to, you know," and I wound up working on Seinfeld.
So Jack was your little angel.
He was my oracle,
That
my
gave you the-
inadvertent, I call him my inadvertent oracle.
How great is that
Yeah.
story? That's
Yeah.
And by the
fantastic.
way, you have your own. We've told our Jack stories.
Yes.
In both of them, he does not disappoint.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
He
like
says
Bob.
The most amazing thing,
Yes.
like Bob.
Yeah.
They're very connected in my mind.
And
Yes.
he loves being Jack Nicholson.
Yes, yes. Well, when you see him in like those early movies, like
Yeah.
Little Shop of Horrors,
Yeah.
and you realize what he became,
Yeah.
it's an incredible monumental journey. You know, I mean, he's an amazing person.
Well deserved.
I never had another encounter with him. I wish I had.
I did get to spend time with him. It was so fun and cool and everything you'd want.
Where was this?
I got to go to a Clippers playoff game with him and Jim Brooks. And we're going to Phoenix. And I go to Jim, and Jim invites me. And I go, are we going to eat before? He goes, yeah, I'd like to, but I don't know where. I said, I know the best pizza place in America is in Phoenix. It's
Bianco's, yeah.
So I know Chris, and I call and I say, I think I can bring Jack Nicholson to the restaurant.
Would that be okay?
If you have room. I mean, there's 5-hour waiting for this. And he goes, oh yeah, you have a table. So we go in, and Jack is like, who found this place? You know, and I say, well, I know Chris Bianco. He goes, all right, let's see. And so now, gulp. I'm
right.
Jack's
pressure.
Jack Nicholson's going to eat the pizza I recommended. It couldn't have been more of a challenge. And he eats it and he loves it. He goes, Phil, did you say this was your pizza? I said, not my pizza, but this is, I love this place. And I'm not the only one. Everybody, he goes, where else should I eat? I said, in LA? He goes, yeah, you seem to know. So I got to give him my list of places. Now, on the ride home, we have the pizza. It's great. We see when we leave Bianco, no one bothers Jack while we're eating at all. No one comes over to the table.
Right,
no one.
right.
But when we get up to leave, the entire restaurant stands and gives him a standing ovation.
Oh, wow.
And I go, holy shit.
That doesn't even happen for Phil now.
Yeah,
right.
Wow. Now we go to the stadium to see the Phoenix Suns. And when we walk into the stadium, the entire stadium stands and cheers. The whole stadium. Why? Because the moment Jack Nicholson walks into the arena, he's on the Jumbotron.
Right.
And the place goes insane because that's not even the Lakers. This is
the visit. He's going
friggin'
to see the
Phoenix.
Visitor. Yeah.
And then on the way home, I spend the whole ride home I said, you mind if I sit with you? And he says, come on. And I just asked him one topic, Kubrick.
Right. Oh, great.
I just thought, I don't know.
You're never going to get that chance. I mean,
when am I going to have that chance?
Yeah.
Nobody knows Kubrick. He knows Kubrick.
Yes.
He's
fascinating. I'd be so curious to hear what he had to say.
I mean, that's for another time.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great. And he talked about how one of the things he mentioned was when he got the script for Terms of Endearment, which was Jim Brooks' movie.
Right, sure.
I said, is it true that you read the script and you turned to whoever you were in bed with and said, I'm going to win an Oscar after reading the script, right? And he goes, that's true. And he goes, and I'm about to win another one. And it was for The Departed.
Oh, right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, he beat the system. That's what's amazing about him, you know.
I won't bore you with my whole story, but I got to write a few things with him. And one time it was come to the house and go up to the house late at night. And we're sitting there writing, I think it was a tribute this time to Hunter Thompson for his memorial. Like,
right.
Just brainstorming. And he started out as a writer and he's still
He wrote Head.
Yeah, he wrote Head for the Monkees.
I mean, he has a writer's mind.
Yes, definitely.
But like a lot of writers, in a writer's room, this was a great writer's room. It was his living room looking out over all of LA. And at one point, he just gets off topic and he goes, David, what do these women want from us? And I was
So
like,
good.
They don't want anything from me, Jack Nicholson, but thank you for including me in the
saying
sentence
us.
somehow. It's the most,
I know, I love
most
it.
generous us in history.
Yeah, the most generous
Yeah.
us in history.
What a
That's so
guy.
good.
Well, he had a weird. Didn't he have a weird childhood also? Right?
Yes.
Oh,
his
he thought his mother
He thought his mother was his aunt or something. Wasn't
That's
that
a
what it
big
was?
No,
trend.
his
Mother was his sister.
his
Sister was
mother
his mother.
turned out to be his sister,
Right. That's what it was.
Which is sort of a John
Crazy.
Lennon-y sort of.
which is why he
Right,
slaps
right.
Faye Dunaway so much in
Right.
that movie.
Oh my goodness! Wow, yeah, he's one of a kind. He's one of those people.
It is not as major a story, but because you have a crush on Bruce Springsteen more than anyone I know, can you just tell your interesting encounter with Bruce?
I was consumed with Bruce when I first moved out here.
Yeah.
Even before.
Yeah.
But it was around the time of Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Yeah.
And then The River came out.
Yeah.
And I had a cassette, a Walkman, and I would just play it over and over and over again. I loved it.
Me too.
Memorized all his music up until that point.
Me too.
Crazy about him.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Forum a couple of times, and I was into him.
Yeah.
And he like
hero.
He spoke to us.
Yes.
He kind of was a voice for us.
Yes.
And
us working class guys.
Exactly. And I used to run around. I used to run at Fairfax High. We lived on a street called Genesee.
Yeah.
And I would walk over to Fairfax High and run.
Uh-huh.
And which I wish I still did, but I don't. And one day I was running, and I used to listen to The River while I would run, because it was always a song with a beat that would keep me going. And I was listening to "Ooh Ooh, I Got a Crush on You," and I'm running along to that song, which is a perfect song to jog to. And up ahead of me, I see a guy jogging, and it's like the sun is going down, and from behind I'm like, wow, could it be? It looks just like Bruce Springsteen, and I run up to him, and sure enough, it's Bruce Springsteen jogging on the track. And I don't
in
say
81. This is
81. I guess it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right around that time, maybe 82 or whatever, around that time. And I don't say a word to him. I just take off my earphones so he could hear that I'm listening to the song.
Beautiful.
And we just both laugh, and I put it back on, and I blew past him. And
you beat him.
You were born to run faster than that.
Yeah. So I didn't want to like hang out and make him feel uncomfortable once I did that. So I had to get past him, but I got to meet him that way. That's how I wound up meeting a lot of these people, just like having these weird, like inadvertent encounters,
And did you meet him again years later?
Never met him again.
No,
never met him again.
I've met him now several times.
Yeah.
Just,
he seems like a great guy also.
But he's great. I'll tell you stories off the thing, because
No,
I think I've repeated them here. But wow. Larry, we love having you here. You got to come back for part 2.
I would love to.
The childhood years.
Yes.
What are you going to call that book?
I don't know yet. This was not the original title for the book. I was calling it "Life Is But a Joke" at one point, to quote Bob.
Well, that's a good title for the first part.
That might be that might be the title.
Yeah.
That might be the title.
For the childhood years.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Larry, now I want you to really eat your sandwich like a good boy.
I'm going to take it with me.
Okay.
I'll take it with me. And thank you for the generosity and the hospitality.
Anytime, my friend. And
you live in a beautiful place, by the way. It's a beautiful house.
I'm the luckiest guy you're ever going to see.
Great place.
But, all right, let's talk about the future.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can get Action Bronson to move to the suburbs.
Maybe we can kind of do it for him,
Yeah, right.
Or maybe we don't have to. Maybe he doesn't really have to. We could just put him in a situation like that.
True.
Animate it.
By the way, I think, Action, if you're listening, I would love to do a crossover where we eat together. I think that would be funny, because
I'm surprised you haven't done that.
We couldn't be more opposite.
Yeah, you have to go into Brooklyn with them and go eat at a couple of places.
Yes.
That would be great.
And you should direct that.
That's a natural. I'd be happy to.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. As long as I get to eat as well.
Maybe I move to the suburbs.
Wasn't Larry Charles great? That was wonderful. Next week, just so you know, we have an amazing lunch with singer-songwriter Regina Spektor, so don't miss that.
Naked Lunch is a podcast by Phil Rosenthal and David Wild. Theme song and music by Brad Paisley, produced by Will Sterling and Ryan Tillotson, with video editing by Daniel Ferreira, and motion graphics by Ali Ahmed. Executive produced by Phil Rosenthal, David Wild, and our consulting journalist is Pamela Chellan. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend. But if you can't take my word for it, take Phil's.
And don't forget to leave a good rating and review. We like 5 stars,
Thanks for listening to Naked Lunch, a Lucky Bastards production.